Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the NECA Universal Monsters Ultimate Dracula figure. And this is the Carfax Abbey version. Also, as of this recording, the black and white version, the only black and white version. And to say I'm confused about this release, or these two Dracula releases, I should say, is putting it mildly. Just about a month back, NECA put out the Transylvania version of Dracula. In the early stages of this Universal Monsters line, NECA was doing both color and black and white versions of all the monsters. The Wolfman, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. The next two characters they put out, the Invisible Man and the Transylvania version of Dracula, they put out only in color. And I know that that is a point of contention with a lot of people, because I know while I'm mostly collecting these figures in their color variants, there are quite a few people who do exactly the opposite. It's a black and white movie, they want a black and white version of the character. And then NECA puts out this thing, the Carfax Abbey version of the Dracula figure. It is somewhat new parts, not a whole lot of new parts, but some new parts, and that is designed so that you can swap in the parts from the Transylvania version of Dracula onto this version to make a color version of the Carfax Abbey Dracula. However, that still means that you cannot have a black and white version of the Transylvania Dracula, since that version of the character does have color pieces on it. So this is just a very confusing way to release things. We know NECA loves to double dip on figures. They've done it historically throughout their line, pretty much on every major property they cover, whether it be repaints to a different character or video game versions of characters, 8-bit, glow-in-the-dark, whatever. But I honestly wonder if maybe this line isn't selling quite as well as they'd hoped, or just manufacturing and material costs has gotten so damn high that they're resorting to being a little more creative and not just assuming everybody's going to be willing to double dip on things. So yeah, that's a little more of a rant / speculation that I normally like to start videos out on, but it kind of felt like important pieces to address with this. I should also state that I do have the Transylvania version. I do intend to review it. I actually intended to review it about a month ago when it came out, and to say life got in the way is putting it mildly. So I wanted to get this one out first since it is the newer figure, and then I'll get back to that other one when I have an opportunity to. But it is honestly going to be a lot of the same major points with these two figures, just some kind of more mild differences. We get a total of 7 unique hands for this figure. The first set I will kind of call his grasping hands, I guess. So these are mostly kind of a chalky white paint with a little bit of black shading on them. You can see the veins and stuff going through the hands. On his left ring finger, we have his kind of signature ring, and both of these have a pretty open grasping pose, like he's trying to grab somebody and bite their neck. Nothing too crazy going on the palm side of them, but still detailed and everything. The next set of hands I would call either the relaxed or gesturing hands. They're still kind of in that grasping pose, but a little less extreme. A lot of the same details going on here with both the ring and all the paint detail and everything. Same idea going on the palm side of them. We get a lantern holding hand. So this is a very kind of specific tight grip, and it's actually a holdover from the color version and meant to hold the little lantern he comes with. While the lantern is mostly black and white, it does have a yellow flame on it, so it doesn't necessarily completely fit in with this figure, but I guess I decided to still give you the hand to hold it. As you can see there on the inside, there's kind of a very deep recessed pocket in there to hold onto the lantern. The fingers are kind of separated into groups of 2 because of the way it's held. It's basically a spot for 2 fingers to loop through the handle on it. So it's a very specific pose for a very specific accessory. And then last up, we have the gloved hands. I believe these are specific to when he goes to the opera. They're very Mickey Mouse looking with those 3 little lines going down the back of the hand. I know that's like a style of glove, but that's just what these remind me of. The left one still does have the ring on it. The left hand is in kind of a more relaxed pose. These are very white as opposed to the grayish white of the uncovered hands. These are pretty stark white. The right hand is shaped to basically hold his walking stick. And if we flip him over, you can see the underside. So kind of a unique gripping pose for that right hand, and not a whole lot anything special going on with the left. But they do keep the wrinkle texture and everything going through that. So it definitely works for what they are. Speaking of the walking stick, it's nothing particularly crazy. It is a black stick with a silver tip on one end. Silver end is nicely detailed. It does kind of bulge out a little bit at the end for where you'd be holding it. And then essentially just a shiny black stick for the rest of it, with no real detail on the bottom end of it. Here's a better look at that hand holding the lantern. So as you can see, the top 2 fingers go through the loop, the thumb kind of goes over it, and then the other 2 fingers sit below. So while the pose looks a little weird when it's separated from the accessory, it does make sense when he's actually holding it. For the walking stick, he can kind of hold it like he's gesturing with it. Honestly, the pose kind of reminds me, ironically, of Lawrence Talbot with his cane hitting Bela the Wolf, played by Bela Lugosi. I don't think this is really how he's supposed to hold it, but it is a way he can hold it. The way that he actually holds it well is kind of odd, and I'm showing it from the bottom side so you can get a little better of an idea. So basically the edge of the cane rests against his middle and ring fingers. His thumb runs alongside it, and then his index finger kind of sits on top. So he's basically holding it straight out like an extension of his arm. And then that pose works to actually have it pointing down like he's actually walking with the stick. I took the bat accessory off of its flight stand and put it on a more dynamic stand just because it was easier to get it to focus with this lens. So the bat accessory is something I'm a little torn on. This is the same sculpt that they gave us with the color version. The paint is similar, and they have kind of accentuated some more grays on this. It's kind of coming off brown on my camera, but they are gray to the naked eye. And my gripe with this is that it looks a little bit more like a bat than what was in the movie. In my mind, NECA normally strives for movie accuracy, and while in a lot of cases I might give a pass to something like this, the prop for this is still around. It was displayed not all that long ago in a museum in LA. I don't know if it's still there or not, but you can go and see it, and you can find many pictures of it online, and it is a much simpler looking design. The entire thing is honestly a lot less complex than what NECA gave us here. So while I like this in terms of like aesthetics of being a bat, I do kind of wish at least one of these sets would have come with a more movie accurate one that was just the derpy looking little bat prop that they had back in the 30s. The face is nicely detailed though. We have the eyes and the ears detailed. The teeth are a nice white on there. The hair texture is nice on the back and it goes down to the legs. There's a nice leathery wing texture going on. You got the little bones inside and everything. More detail there on the underside, kind of matching the top. I did put some blue tack in the peg hole on him so he'd fit on that flight stand, but other than that, that's the only thing I've changed here. The flight stand itself is pretty simple. It's basically a ball shape on the top of a clear rod, and on the bottom that pegs into a little round black stand. Dracula also comes with his top hat, or whatever this hat's called. I'm sure somebody knows what it's really called, and I'm probably wrong. It's very simple in design, though. It's kind of an oval shape. It's got the little brim on there. There's a little kind of ridge going around where the brim meets the rest of the hat. Nothing crazy, but it serves its purpose for the one scene that you see it in. Nothing interesting going on the inside of it either. Dracula comes with 3 head sculpts. These are the exact same head sculpts that we got on the color version, just done in a black and white theme. So really just a lot of grays and then dark blacks. But the detail on here is really nice. You can see there's like some good texture going on in his forehead wrinkles, even in his lips and eyebrows. The eyes are a little hard to read just because they are kind of dark on dark, but they work well enough. This head kind of gives us more of a smirking expression, so you can see they did a decent job getting the lines on the side of his head for that. The hair is pretty simple, just kind of black and slicked back. The ears are nicely sculpted. Nothing too crazy going on in the back. And then there's our other side. All of these heads also come with the neck pieces attached, basically just like all the other Universal monsters for the most part. So the neck isn't super detailed or anything, it's just a human neck in a black and white motif. And just to include it, here's him with the hat on in this head sculpt. Next up is his more serious head sculpt, a lot of the same great detailing going on here. Looking at this with the macro lens, it's pretty impressive what kind of skin texture they got into something this tiny. Again, there we see him from the side, same idea with the hair and the ears and all that. There's the back, and then from his other side. And then once again, there with the hat just to see that it fits. And last but not least, his kind of more angry face. He has his teeth exposed here, looking really pissed off. There's that one from the one side, the back. And there's the other side. And I just dropped the hat into the dark oblivion under my desk. So you just got to take my word for it. It does fit him. The more I've looked at this head, and mostly it's on the color version because I've had that longer, it's grown on me, but it is still like my least favorite of the 3. There's a classic Dracula expression where he's not quite angry like this, and they captured it beautifully on the caustic plastic version that came out not that long ago, the 1/6 scale version. And to me, that's such an iconic Dracula face. I really feel like they should have done that instead of this one. I feel like this was included to be something more of like a quote-unquote action look or something. But to me, it just isn't as iconic for the character as the other look. Looking further down the figure, he has his kind of white bow tie on there, which is a bit of a glossy color, almost pearlescent looking, which helps it stand out from his white shirt underneath. We have the silver chain, it looks like connected to a pocket watch going down on the front of him. You can see the detail of the white shirt, I don't know what you call that, the vest or whatever underneath it, and then his tuxedo jacket on the outside. Likewise, the lapels on his jacket are kind of a gloss black that match with like the buttons and everything on there, giving it a little bit more of a standout look compared to just being black on black. The wrinkles on everything are well done. Not a whole lot of wrinkles in the main upper torso on the front, but then when you get onto the arms and everything, they are really nicely done. The back as well looks really clean. See, there's the two buttons back there, and then it goes down the tuxedo tail there in the back, which is all made out of soft rubber. As I mentioned, the arm has good wrinkle detail on it. And then at the end of the sleeve, you have two buttons and then a little bit of the white shirt sticking out. The lower torso does have some kind of almost, not even really wrinkles, more like pleats in the pants. And that continues down to his glossy black shoes with some laces and everything detailed on them, looking really nice. And then he does have peg holes at the bottom there, so you can put him on a stand. I left the cape out of his regular accessories, but we should talk about it. It is a soft goods cape. It is black on the outside and then gray on the inside, which is unique to this version of the Dracula figure. The cape also features a hard plastic high collar, and this is all that holds the cape onto the figure. It's basically a thin piece of hard plastic that kind of clicks around his neck. It doesn't make a super strong connection at any point, and it does fall off quite a bit. I really wish they would have included some kind of magnetic attachment or something in there to make it a more positive connection, because I feel like if you do swap the cape on and off over time a lot, this plastic is going to get worn out because it is really thin, and then there's a chance of it never being able to go back on your figure securely again without resorting to like blue tack or something. The other thing I do want to comment on is the color of the inside of the cape. The Lugosi family actually has a replica of what I believe is this cape that they bring around to conventions and things, and on their version, the interior color is kind of more of a brownish. Here, NECA has gone with a straight gray. I've also seen a lot of Universal's art and official color schemes for the cape having a red interior to it. Personally, I prefer the red look. I think it's really cool looking for the character. And it seems like Universal shot things using items that were not the color they were going to appear on screen, but just stuff that would look good filmed in black and white, and then in their official art or whatever would update the colors to what they interpreted it as being in the world of the movie. So not to make another comparison to a much more expensive figure, but that caustic plastic one does have the red interior to the cape. I really like that one, but I would have really kind of liked either way to get the color of maybe the Lugosi family version of the cape. I was just really hoping that there would be a second cape hidden somewhere in the packaging to go with the color version of the figure. For articulation, it's basically what we've come to expect with these figures. All the heads and hands seem to basically be the same. We have a ball joint at the upper head, so that can move side to side on a pivot. It can rotate side to side, it'll look up, it'll look down, all that good stuff. The lower neck is the same, also a ball joint, so you can go down, up, pivot, and side to side with it. It's hard to move them independently of each other truly, but you do get a really good range of motion. I should also point out that unlike the Invisible Man where you have the very shallow pegs, this is a more normal one, so there's a lot of neck that goes plugging into his collar. The arms are pretty standard. They'll do a full 360. They will go out to the side, shy of 90 degrees. They will tuck very far into the body. We have a single jointed elbow. It will bend about 90 degrees there. We could also swivel at that elbow. The hands will all rotate and then pivot up and down like that. We have a rotation at the waist. It's actually a ball joint, so you can go a little up and down, rock back and forth, as well as rotate there. We have the diaper on the lower body, so the legs will kick forward. They'll kick a little bit back. It is limited by this tuxedo tail here, so that does hinder it a little bit. We can rotate at the upper leg. We could bend the knee at about 90 degrees, actually a little beyond 90 degrees. We can rotate the knee. The foot will pivot down. Pivots up just a very little bit because of the cuff of the pants, and then it will pivot. And as I mentioned, all the hands and heads are interchangeable between the two releases, so you can get the color version here. There's not a whole lot of color going on in his body or on the cape, and honestly, I can't even tell, looking at my little screen here, if the flesh tone even shows up on camera. But yeah, this does make the color version. And if you're displaying him with the gloves from the opera scene, you don't even have to worry about swapping the hands. You just swap one of the color heads in, you keep those gloves on, and you're good to go. Though, in reviewing back over the movie, I do realize that the costume he's wearing in the opera scene is the Transylvania costume, or at least partly. He still has the medallion around his neck. It may be possible that some of the details of his suit match this version. I'm not 100% certain. I really needed to study it a little bit closer than I did. But yeah, it is actually, now that I think about it, kind of odd because we do get the top hat, cane, and gloves that technically really should go on the other version, but the other version isn't compatible, once again, with black and white. So you can have a color version of opera scene Dracula, but not a black and white scene. This is really more a little bit after that scene, and for the rest of the movie after that, he's in this costume specifically. For a size comparison, here he is next to the Transylvania version. No real surprises here. Basically the same height. I do have my Transylvania version in a more dynamic pose, but they're basically the same figure. There he is next to Frankenstein's monster. So once again, Karloff towering over everybody else. The Invisible Man. And my perpetual human stand-in with these Universal Monsters figures, Doc Brown. Oh, and actually, because I have a friend that'll be very mad at me if I don't make this comparison, the NECA Simon Belmont. Overall, despite the weirdness of the release, I think this is a really nicely done figure. While I don't really love the idea of having to swap out parts from the previous release to give this guy heads and hands, because it does limit how you could display both together on the shelf if you're only going to buy one of each. If they're going to do this gimmick, at least it works on this one. The clothing is pretty much what it needs to be for it to work in black and white. I like that he has the gloved hands that are unique to him. They're just going to be white either way, so it doesn't really matter in that respect. And overall, he's well sculpted, well articulated. I think the only other real complaint I have about it is just that I wish the cape had some kind of magnetic mechanism to make it stay on. Just because it just doesn't want to stay on the figure, and I feel like over time it's just going to get worse and worse. But overall, definitely recommendable. I'm really hoping my comic shop will have the accessory set in sometime very soon. I know some people are already starting to get theirs, so I know it's got to be coming very fast, but I'm feeling very impatient to get to see it with my own eyes. That one is particularly exciting because that is one that Diamond didn't give us, as opposed to the other two accessory sets we've gotten where the main component was something from the old Diamond figures. So it'll be very interesting to see something new. I also could not find my old Diamond Dracula to compare this guy with, but there really is no comparison. The Diamond version was just a generic Dracula character, and this is just straight up Lugosi, so it's much better in that respect alone. But let me know in the comments below. Are you picking this guy up? Are you only picking up either the color or the black and white version? Does this weird swapping thing bug you? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all next time. Later.